What versions are the top 10 best bodybuilder versions of the last 10 years, from 2011 until this very day? Well, this is a question that I will seek to answer in this video. Keep in mind that this is only my opinion, so without further ado, let's get straight to it. Now, before we start, I want to give an honorable mention to Dexter Jackson at the 2015 Mr. Olympia, where he placed second. I won't elaborate further why he did not make the list, but he barely did not make the list. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it, starting off at number 10 with the 2011 Arnold Classic version of Branch Warren. Now, this guy at this show looked absolutely amazing. He placed first at the show, so he won that show. He is just crazy when it comes to his conditioning and muscularity, vascularity for days, granity for days, graininess for days, shreddedness for days, and last but not least, he has legs for days. Those legs are some of the best of all time. But ahead of him in ninth is none other than Dennis Big Bad Wolf. Now this guy has an amazing structure. His shoulder width is insane. His waist is pretty small, in spite of some weaknesses. For example, in the calves. I don't think I have to elaborate further when it comes to that. He is an absolutely amazing bodybuilder. This is him at the 2013 Mr. Olympia. So, in my opinion, during the last 10 years, 2013 Mr. Olympia Dennis Wolf gets the 9th spot. Now, ahead of Dennis Big Bad Wolf, we have William Bonak. Now, again, this is William Bonak at the 2019 Arnold Classic Australia. And just like Dennis Wolf, he has some weaknesses. He is fairly short, which is not that special in bodybuilding, but he's even shorter than most top bodybuilders. And he is also a bit narrow and a bit blocky. But other than that, he has those crazy muscle bellies coming straight at you. Put on your 3D glasses because he absolutely has that 3D muscle effect that he also shares with Phil the Gift Heath. He is also in very good conditioning, and at the show, in my opinion, this was his best shape of all time. But still, he brings good conditioning at basically every show. But this version, in my opinion, deserves the 8th spot. Now, coming in at the 7th spot is this man right here, the guy that beat him at the 2019 Arnold Classic. If you guys are confused, the version of William Bonak was the 2019 Arnold Classic Australia. This is the 2019 Arnold Classic, a more prestigious show. And in my opinion, Brandon Curry, in spite of the weaknesses he shows downstairs, this guy is absolutely insane. His upper body is one of the best of all time. And in my opinion, this is his all-time best version at the 2019 Arnold Classic. Absolutely insane. Look at that front lat spread. His width, absolutely insane. His waist size, tiny, which is insane when it comes to the V-taper. Creates an insane V-taper. And he has so much size upstairs. Crazy good muscle bellies. And even though he doesn't have the best conditioning of all time, the conditioning that he brought to the 2019 Arnold Classic, in my opinion, is more than decent. So, who is ahead of Brandon Curry? This might be controversial, but in the 6th spot, we have this man right here, Bodybuilder Rolly Winkler. Now, Rolly Winkler might be a controversial pick because he is not that shredded. This is him from the 2018 Mr. Olympia. Some might say that this is not his best version, but I tend to disagree. I think that this is his best version. And even though he is not shredded, and even though in the side chest he looks like he's struggling to take a really big poop. Anyway, let me stop joking. As I said, not that shredded, but look at his muscularity. Look at those arms, for example. Look at those lats from the back. They look like straight up tumors. This guy is freaky, and he has freakiness for days. So in spite of him lacking conditioning, I think that he still deserves a spot on this list. And guys, if you take a close look at the 2018 Mr. Olympia, he did not bring that bad of conditioning in my opinion, so definitely deserves to be on this list. Now, ahead of Bodybuilder Rolly Winkler is none other than Hari Chupan, which lands in 5th on this list. Now, again, this might be yet another controversial pick because this guy was beaten by none other than the 7th spot Brandon Curry at the 2019 Mr. Olympia, which this version is from. But then again, guys, in my opinion, that lad was robbed, or not that lad, but this lad was robbed in broad daylight because, in my opinion, I do not see how Brandon Curry could beat him. I get that Brandon Curry upstairs is more complete, but then again, guys, if you want to talk about completeness, I mean, just look downstairs at their wheels. This guy, much better wheels. Granted, Brandon Curry, he has a better waistline. His waistline is smaller. But then again, Hadi Chupin battles back. He has a better midsection. It is more cut. He also has better muscle separation. He's more striated. He's overall in better conditioning. And overall, even though he's lacking some body parts here and there, for example, his forearms, they are fairly weak. The muscle bellies that he has in his arms, not the absolute best of all time. But overall, he's more complete than Brandon Curry. He is pretty much just as wide. He gives up a bit size, but in my opinion, he makes up for it when it comes to conditioning and completeness, as I mentioned. So, Hadi Chupin, in my opinion, at the 2019 Mr. Olympia, he does more than enough to land in 5th on this list. Now, just ahead of him in 4th, this might be a surprise to some of you, Mamdoua El Spaye, Big Ramy. Now, this lad is absolutely huge. He certainly lives up to his name, Big. This guy, in my opinion, the only weaknesses that he has, apart from some minor weaknesses when it comes to muscle insertion, such as his lower back, is not evident here, but it's evident in the back double biceps. But other than that, I would say that his biggest weakness is lack of striations and muscle separation. Especially when you look at it from the front, upstairs. He just does not have the same chest striations, shoulder striations, etc. as, for example, a Hadi Chupin and in 2020 Mr. Olympia, which, by the way, this version is from. I'm sure that most of you hardcore bodybuilding fans already knew that, but if you guys didn't know, then now you know. But anyway, guys, this guy came in quite peeled at the 2020 Mr. Olympia, but I don't know what it is. Maybe he just has some of that thicker skin, because in spite of looking fairly conditioning, he still is lacking some striations and muscle separation, in my opinion. And again, guys, not that it really matters in bodybuilding, but this guy, more so than most other bodybuilders, in my opinion, is not the prettiest physique to look at. Especially his quads, they look a bit weird, and his waistline, even though it's not distended by any means, still looks a bit weird, and his overall flow is a bit off. But then again, guys, they don't call him Big Ramy for nothing. This guy is just absolutely huge, freaky, came in condition in 2020, and when you have that huge mass monster look and you come in condition, something's great gonna happen, and something great did happen. But who places ahead of a freaky, huge, conditioned mass monster? Well, this might be controversial, but he rest in peace, Shawn Rhoden. Now, Shawn Rhoden, if you look at his physique, you can see that he does not have the most amazing arms of all time, but they are decent. His back, not the most amazing back of all time, but it's decent. But overall, guys, his flow and most importantly, his conditioning. As Mark's Muscle usually says, this guy came in absolutely peeled at the 2018 Mr. Olympia, where this version is from. This man, Shawn Rhoden, was just absolutely amazing in my opinion. Primarily due to his flow and conditioning. I feel like his conditioning is underrated here. One of the most conditioned versions of any bodybuilders of all time. So, in my opinion, that's enough to land him in the 3rd spot. Now, I'm sure that most of you hardcore bodybuilding fans before this video started already knew who the top 2 guys were going to be. But what about their versions? Well, when it comes to the 2nd spot, Kai Green, not hard to predict, but I chose his 2012 Mr. Olympia version. He might have been bigger at the 2016 Arnold Classic, but in my opinion, he was a bit more peeled, dice to the socks, out of the box, as Louis Mark used to say, in this version. And in my opinion, this physique just looks better. Kai Green, do I need to say more? If Phil Heath did not exist, which is a big hint of who's going to place first, but I don't think that is a major surprise. This man would have been a multiple-time Mr. Olympia, but unfortunately for him, presenting your number one best bodybuilder version in the last 10 years, none other than Philip the Gift Heath. Now, Phil Heath, when was he at his best? That is debatable, but in my opinion, I would choose the 2013 Mr. Olympia version. In 2011, he came in a bit more aesthetic, but he was also a bit more downsized. And in my opinion, from the back and when it comes to the wheels, he was a bit better here. So, in a bodybuilding context, or I guess not in a classic physique, but in an open bodybuilding context, he would absolutely destroy his 2011 version here, in my opinion. Now, even though Phil Heath in the later years of his career came in more bloated than the anabolic chicken after drinking 3,000 protein shakes, back in 2013 and before that, there was no distended midsection to speak of when you came to Philip Heath. And this guy is amazing, in my opinion. This is the second most amazing bodybuilder version of all time. So, for me, it was an easy choice. But that was just my list, guys. I'm also interested to hear about your guys' opinion, so do not forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I love you, beautiful ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you guys later.